Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to walk you through my winter sowing process. For those that are not familiar with this method, winter sowing is the process of sowing seeds outdoors in containers that act like miniature greenhouses during the winter and allowing the seeds to germinate naturally when the weather warms up. Winter sowing alleviates the need to have space and equipment to start your seeds indoors or having to harden them off once the plants are ready to go outside. To winter sow, you will need plastic containers that are clear or opaque. You want to be able to see your hand when you put it up against the plastic. This will indicate that the sunlight can filter through. Containers that work well are 1-gallon milk jugs or water jugs. However, you can use all types of containers. The main thing that you want to ensure is that it can hold 3 to 4 inches of soil, plus an additional 4 to 5 inches for the seedlings to have room to grow. You will need to add holes on the bottom of your container for drainage. If you get a lot of rain or snow in your area, you can consider adding holes on the sides for added drainage, which I did. For air circulation, you need to leave the cap off. I also added some small holes on the top to ensure there is enough air circulating, since last year I had issues with algae forming on top of the soil. Now you want to cut your container. So I measured the 4-inch mark where I want my soil line to be. And then I used a utility knife to cut through. So you want to cut almost all the way through, but not quite. What you want to do is end up leaving a hinge in the container so that you have the two pieces connected. Now that the containers are ready, we can add the soil. For the soil, you will want to use a potting mix, but be sure not to use one that is water retaining. I used this Espoma potting mix, and I added a little extra perlite. I also pre-moistened the soil by adding some tap water that was room temperature and had been sitting out for a few days. I made sure the soil was damp but not too wet. A way to test it is to see that the soil clumps together but is still crumbly and that the water isn't dripping out when you're squeezing it. When filling the container, be sure to add at least 3 to 4 inches of soil. I had added a mark at 4 inches just to give me a guide as to how high I should be adding the soil in my container. Now we are ready to add the seeds. Be sure to read the package to see what depth you should be planting. For very small seeds, usually you just need to sprinkle them on top. Most of mine were very tiny seeds. I made sure to press down lightly to ensure that the seeds had good seed to soil contact. Perennial flowers and hardy annuals are good choices for winter sowing. I'm in US Zone 6B and I am winter sowing coneflowers, lavender, rhododendron, columbine, bee balm, and many other perennials in January, and I will be winter sowing my tender annuals around late March or early April. I also sprayed a bit of water on top with a mister bottle I had on hand. You also want to be sure you insert a label on the inside of your container just in case any of the labeling you do on the outside fades away. Before adding the duct tape to your container, you want to be sure that everything is nice and dry so that the tape adheres to the container. I use duct tape to close my containers up. I also labeled in a couple of places. I labeled on the actual container. In some cases, I labeled on the actual duct tape, but I also used some tags that I added to the handles of the containers as an additional place of marking what I planted. I also used a marker that is weather and UV resistant. Now the containers are ready to go outdoors. I am placing them out in my flower bed, and you can put them really anywhere you would like outside. Just don't put them too close to the house where there may be an overhang and the rain can't get into the container. you want to be sure that the moisture remains in the container. You also want to be sure that they're in a sunny location that gets at least maybe 6 hours of sunlight or more. That way the air inside the container warms up enough and creates the condensation. That condensation is the indicator to you that there is sufficient moisture. If you don't see condensation, you do want to add a little bit of water to your containers and make sure that their seeds have enough moisture. Here you can see how the container acts like a greenhouse. Today is 31 degrees Fahrenheit, and on the inside of the container, it is almost 60 degrees. The containers will freeze and thaw repeatedly throughout the winter into spring. Once the weather warms up, the seeds will germinate. So I encourage you to give winter sowing a try with a couple of jugs or containers. For more information on winter sowing, there is a website called wintersown.org that has a lot of useful information. They also have a Facebook group called Winter Sowers that you can join and has a great community for you to ask questions. So thank you so much for watching, and I will keep you posted on my progress, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye.